Welcome to Perspectives YYC. In today's episode, I actually sat down with my incredible wife, Helen Youn. Now she changed her last name of her own account. I'll have you know. And we got to chat about us. It was great. I want to thank Kyle for being such a great producer for that. A quick thank you to Handmade, a local band here who's just released their debut EP called For You. It's on, I believe, all streaming services. They allowed us initial access, pre-release for their amazing song On and On, which you hear before and through the podcast. If you do get a chance to check them out, Handmade, not the Thai boy band, just check them out. Give them a follow on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you might be able to search and find them. Thanks again to Handmade for an awesome track for us. Yeah, I think we were also saying something about if you do have some time to press pause, to give us a rating, a review, subscribe. We're now on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Google Play, and wherever you're at, to just give us some direction. That'd be great. But without further ado, here's me chatting with my wife about the last incredible 18 years that she's given to me. Hope you like it.
I think that your heart is white. I think it's pretty cool. Could go on and on and on and on about you. You might think that your heart is white, but I think it's pretty cool. Could go on and on and on and on about you. And I would if I could fall in. I would if I could fall in.
Plosive.
Mind your plosives.
Nobody knows what that means.
No, I don't.
And Adobe just updated all of their software,
Adobe.
so I'm using this new software. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah,
Adobe.
Well, not new software, but new update.
they mine updated, then it told me the credit card was wrong, then it told me this, and then it downloaded 3 new apps even though I didn't ask because of Photoshop, and it's fucking annoying.
Yeah, but because it's you, I would say user error.
That will be on the recording. Show how cruel you are to me. Such a hard life, Kyle. Welcome. Today, it's going to be fun. I've brought my beautiful wife, the most lovely lady that I've ever met. You know, if you roll eyes while you're on an audio podcast, nobody can see it. You'll have to emote that somehow with your mouth. So Helen Youn now. Helen Youn is here with us today. And as usual, to her frustration, we have not prepared anything for this. That's just how I operate. So I thought maybe I'll quickly ask you, what do you feel comfortable with? Do you want to talk about your business, us, maybe how we came to be where we're at today versus where we were maybe 2.5 years ago, about our boss, Emerson? I don't know.
Whatever you want. It's your podcast.
Well, you did threaten to take over and interrogate me, so I thought I would start there. How about this? For those who don't know, Helen and I have been romantically entangled for a little over 18 years. And while maybe visually we don't look old, ooh, that, we're going to keep that in.
That
Kyle
was like
just
a ninja catch.
Ninja caught his phone. That's what 10 years of working at Apple will do to you. He knows technology. He felt it moving off his lap. That was amazing.
That was amazing.
I'm multitasking.
I hope. Man, that was good. So we met in the year 2000.
That's true.
Yeah. We've grown up together, essentially, and you are on the borderline of having been together with me for as long as you have without.
That's true, because I'm 37.
No, one more year.
One more year.
And so our kind of life together spans quite a lot of different phases, I think. And so our recent one is of more notoriety. So I've got a podcast, which is insane. I mean, you know more than anybody that I have no right to have a podcast. I have a magazine. Helen was asking me this morning what I was bringing her on for, if she's not an artist, quote unquote, but she is. So when I met her, she was entering fashion design school in Ryerson, Toronto. She had super short super red, crimson red hair.
Like Ronald McDonald.
Yeah. Was into rave scene, dark raves, doing
As did
crazy
every
stuff.
art student.
I'm just... and then throughout the years, through our corporate experience, and Kyle has become aware of how bitter I am about that. Mostly it's my fault, but that's okay. You still were creative. You built stuff. You got, certified in InDesign. You did this and that. And now, amongst all the cool stuff you do for your own work, you build my magazine for me.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I wonder if you started a magazine thinking that I would build it for you.
Never mind the magazine. I'm pretty sure subconsciously all of my midlife crisis revolves around things that I know I can ask you to help me out in.
Mm-hmm.
I
think you're trying to come up with projects that we can work together on.
Yeah. I mean, I've always told you that we should always be working together.
Yeah.
We are a weird couple in the sense that I will speak for myself.
Mm-hmm.
If it were up to me, we would be doing everything together. Yeah, I'm a big sap.
So you just need to get your KonMari certification.
We talked about it, and I have a feeling I'd be pretty good at it.
Probably. You were sort of my KonMari consultant.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a second. Let's go there. Let's talk about KonMari. Maybe if you want to talk about KonMari from your pitch level, about what KonMari is, and then we'll talk about how we discovered KonMari, which ties into why we're doing any of this at all.
All right. Well, the KonMari method is a Japanese method of organizing. It was created by Marie Kondo. What do I want to say about it? It's all about finding joy. And I see it as almost like a self-discovery journey. So Marie Kondo wrote this book called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And it has been translated into over 40 languages around the world. She's sold over 10 million copies. And she has consultants around the world that does what she does, helping people organize their home and organize their life, because your home should reflect your ideal life. And that's what I do.
Does she ever talk about why? I can't remember. Does she talk about why she started doing that? I remember something about her being like a weird kid.
Yeah, so she's been obsessing about organizing since she was 5 years old. And she would just rush home and read her mom's magazine, housewife magazines about organizing tips and whatever. That was her favorite thing to do, and just organize and reorganize. And I think she felt really frustrated at one point when she was a teenager, because she's organizing all the time, but why is there so much to organize? Why does she never felt like she was done? So one day she passed out from organizing, from exhaustion. And she talks about this a lot, as she's probably the only person who's ever passed out from organizing. And when she woke up, she had this epiphany. She felt like God was speaking to her. She had this epiphany that I've been doing it wrong this whole time. I've been looking at what I want to discard rather than what I want to keep in my life. And that's one of the biggest difference in how you look at things. Because when people talk about decluttering, they're always going around their home and saying, oh, what should I get rid of? What don't I need? But rather than doing that, you should think about, what do I actually need? What do I want in my life? And then approach it that way.
The interesting thing about that, other than it's the most Japanese story ever, passing out from organizing, having, some god or goddess come down from maybe up from the earth, because they have their, Shinto beliefs of gods living amongst men, and just going, this is the true path, the correct path. But what's interesting is how it lines up with how we discovered it, and why I keep describing this stage of my and presumably our lives as a midlife crisis, which is that I think that reflects on how I was living my life leading up to that in general. It was about hating on things and throwing things away and just being so disappointed with myself and everything around. And when we found it, we were in trouble.
Yeah, it was at a low point.
Well,
Should we
maybe-
talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. It's
Yeah.
up to you.
I talk about it all the time.
Yeah, because it
Yeah.
was, of all
It's
the 18
the
years,
truth.
that was probably the bottom.
Yeah, it's the truth. So it was when Emerson was about to turn 1. I remember, so it would have been like, what, 2015?
Yes.
In April, I think is when...
Yeah, just before his birthday.
Yeah, I think we were in a really bad place. I was still on mat leave. You were on stress leave from your corporate job.
I think my third in a row.
Yeah, you were not doing well. We were not doing well. We were just, barely just getting
Hanging on.
through the day.
Mm.
And one day I felt like I was out of Netflix. There was nothing more to watch. When you feel like you've caught up. You don't watch a lot of TV, but... So I downloaded this book on a whim on my phone. Remember, I threw it at you and I said, read this, summarize it for me because I'm too stressed out to read it or I'm too overwhelmed because I was nursing Emerson. And so you just had this like horror look on your face. Like, I think you were really shocked that your wife would throw a phone at you. And then you just started reading it and I could tell that you were so hooked. Just from the first page. And you're not really the kind of person that really gets hooked on anything. So I kept asking you, what's going on in the book? And you're like, just wait. And then finally you said, this is not the kind of book I can summarize for you. So if you want to read it, you just have to read it. And then we were both just reading on our bed, I remember.
I get hooked on stuff. I'm hooked on Candy Crush right now.
Oh my
It's
God.
kicking my ass. Like, I close my eyes and all I see is those goddamn candies like lining up in like 5s and 8s. And I don't know. Anyways, okay. So Candy Crush.
You are hooked on Candy Crush.
It's insane.
It's insane.
For my part, I was, as it turns out, my real bottom personally was a year later, but I was losing my mind at that point. And when I opened that ebook, we didn't have the physical book at that time. Just to give an idea, our place, it was messy. It was kind of overlaid with everything. We were carrying all this stuff from Toronto. We had done a big purge, and you had an intuition about this lightening of the load when we left Toronto. But when I opened that book, and we were in so much goddamn trouble without any help for parenting, and we were just so stretched out. And then this book's kind of like joy and like reassess. I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck yeah,
Like, live your ideal life.
I can't answer any of these questions at that point. I wasn't listening to music. Like we were watching movies on Netflix, but I don't remember anything we watched. It was like this haze. And we were so whiny. Like, people would meet us and we'd be like, parenting's shit and we're having so much fucking trouble and blah, 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 blah. And like, when we look at some of the pictures, we had a great time.
I know,
And our son
but
was so
we weren't
goddamn
in a
cute.
good place.
No, we were struggling. So I
So
opened
when
this
you're not
book.
in a good place, you look at everything with your negative point of view.
Yeah, exactly. The glasses. Open this book and it's like, you can change it. All you have to do is start with your clothes. And that was easy for me because I'm like, I don't have that many clothes to begin with. So yeah, let's do it. And so we did it together. It took us 2 weeks.
I think,
a week?
I would say it's probably like 2 or 3 weeks of really intensive.
Like sweating.
We
were
would trade off whenever
exhausting.
Emerson
Oh,
was awake. But I want to say something about the clothes because you did have clothes. You didn't have a lot, but you did have clothes. But that was when you decided to adopt the uniform.
Yeah. I can't remember if it was the same time that the Steve Jobs book came out or if it was just before, but yeah, I have a uniform.
Yeah, because you said to me, I realized clothes doesn't bring me joy the same way that it would bring you joy.
Yep.
So I think if I don't really care about clothes, what would bring me the most joy is to just not have to think about it.
Yeah. And it was echoed again. I don't know if I was inspired or saw it again in the Steve Jobs bio, but yeah, I have 7 shirts, have 7 underwear, 1 pair of pants, and then I just go. Although saying it that way it makes it sound like a go-getter. I'm not a go-getter. I'm addicted to Candy Crush, right? Like, yeah. But when I play Candy Crush, I'm wearing 1 of 7 shirts and my 1 pair of jeans. I don't have to worry about what to wear to Candy Crush. So that's kind of an important. For me, what was the big thing? The clothes was a cool one. The books. So I'd carried with us 2 or 3 Billy bookcases of philosophy and history and all this weight about what I thought I needed people to see me as. And when I got to that point, I thought I was going to be in trouble, and I threw them all away. Like, we sold them. Like, there's a whole other story about what happened with it after, but oh my God, like it was so fast because I realized at that point, 2015. So when did I graduate? Not that I wanted to, but 2009 maybe. So it'd been like maybe 5 or 6 years or 7 years after I had apparently received a degree from U of T, which I really don't deserve. And I put it all away because I don't know. Ask me now. What did Jean-Paul Sartre say? I don't know. I don't remember. Which I mean, sometimes it comes up, but it's not important.
I'm sure you remember a lot more than you're letting on.
And I kept 5 books on photography, which I wasn't really a photographer yet. I was dabbling with it. I was stressed out. I couldn't call myself a photographer at that time.
Yeah, you had a hard time with that.
Yeah, for a long time. And then we started, and it wasn't easy. It's not like you woke up the next day and you're like, I'm going to be a KonMari consultant. I was like, I'm going to start a podcast. Like we had no idea what we were going to do next. We had another year of suffering, but it got so much lighter and easier to manipulate, and kind of like, when you come home and your home is just things that you've selected that you actually are engaged with, it affects your spiritual life. It affects the way you look at yourself. And it's why it's become such a fundamental, almost, I hate to say religious, but, spiritually important book. Not that I've reread it since then, but fascinating.
I read it a few times after, obviously, but I pick up new things every time I open it up because, the human mind, at least my mind, I'm not able to absorb 100% of the information. So every time I reread it, I'm getting like a new piece of wisdom in there. There's so much in there.
So now we're here. I mean, a few years passed and some other stuff happened. Our son got older, so it became easier to deal with. It wasn't like a situation where we needed to be, well, we're still enslaved to him, but enslaved to him.
The vocabulary that you use. But I do want to say one thing that's really changed for us is that after the process, we really changed our relationship with things. So before the KonMari process, we were both collectors. You loved collecting things like DVDs, books, anything, Scotch at one point, like anything that you enjoy, you would collect all the things around it. And I was the same way too. I had no hobbies other than shopping. If I had like a few hours off, I would just go shopping. So that's really changed. And I think it really makes us look at our lives differently because of that.
Yeah, us and then all the creators I'm meeting, and Kyle, my friend Kyle and I are friends now. If that's
you would not have met Kyle.
Are people that want to go and do something, whatever it is. And I think the forward of the new magazine is trying to open up that as well, which is that I want the idea of art, like you were talking again this morning about, I'm not creative. You're an exceptionally creative person. And I think that creativity can be in the form of some media, but also how you deal with your clients and stuff, and going into someone else's house and seeing how they might want to arrange something. And they're like, oh, well, this is not going to fit. And you're really good at just be like, okay, well, you just put this here. And all of a sudden, like,
oh yeah. It's creative solutions.
Yeah. And you take those things for granted. The layouts are the same thing. Like, it's not just that you're good at graphic design. I mean, there's so many graphic designers. Like, you built the layout of our magazine in 3 days. That's insane. When you started being a KonMari consultant, you took it upon yourself to learn how to use Squarespace and Instagram as a tool, as opposed to being enslaved to it. And then you created, like, I remember the first time you showed me your website, you had a pop-up window. I was like, how do you get pop-up windows on Squarespace? Like, I click and drag my picture where it says insert image, and I write where it says add text, and it looks like shit. And then you have your website. I'm like, well, is it a different template? And you're like, no, you just have to do this, this, and this because you went and researched it. That's creativity. There's action. There's kind of like engagement, which I think is always attracted me to you. I think even when we were in collecting phase and living all that stuff, you're an interesting person. I like watching you do stuff because I tend to do other things. Bad things, silly things. This morning, our son had a DEFCON fucking 10 freak out. And now I realize, like, that's just how I've lived my entire life. So I'm sorry. that you've put up with that for 18 years. Wow. Having listened to the podcast and having kind of understanding where we're going, where are you at right now?
I don't know. I think just there's so much history, right? And there's so much that we've been through together. I think that's why it's harder to just pick one thing and talk about it. But I think it would be interesting to kind of hear how you had more clarity about your life and decided to, start calling yourself a photographer because you had a hard time with that. And then moving on to creating perspectives and how you became a person who, if you think you want to do something, you just go and do it instead of just waiting around until that opportunity is presented to you, because that's kind of where you were before. And then you become like you have changed a lot.
My first thought when you flip the script here and ask me a question is countering with the question like, how do we get our first house? Who led the charge with that? You did.
I did.
Yeah. And
I had this crazy thought that I needed to own a house by the time I was 24 in Toronto.
Yeah.
That was a goal of mine, and I did it, but we suffered for many years.
Not just that, but you did that. I mean, let's talk about our history. You did that I don't know if the volume peak of some of my worst alcohol abuse. I was living with a good friend of mine. We were literally drinking something like 16 hours a day and living in this. It was a nice apartment that we destroyed.
Yeah, you guys destroyed. I would not set foot in that apartment by the
alcohol
end.
bottles and fruit flies and rotten
It was so
food.
disgusting.
And living in squalor. And we had probably been together, 6 years at that point. And or 5 years, and you're like, well, I just have to own a house. I'm like, what? Like, and you were working 2 jobs. You graduated fashion, so that doesn't pay because it's like the worst industry.
I got a job in fashion, didn't pay enough, so I got a second job.
Yeah, you had the second job first.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because you were paying your own way through university too, because you're a badass, and then and you're good at that. And I got fired from a lawn care company for showing up and skipping houses and being drunk at work, and you're working 2 jobs, and you're like, I'm gonna own a house, and I'm like lying on a floor, like picking fights with myself, and then and then you gave me the ultimatum. You're like, well, look, that first high-rise condo, you couldn't get the bid in. I remember that, or something like that.
It wasn't really an ultimatum. I don't think you should call it that, because that's a term used to describe something else.
Yeah,
I think I said, I'm going to buy this condo. And you said, well, that's going to be really small, so I'm not going to move in. I said, okay, that's fine. And then it didn't work out. And then my parents were trying to sell their place. And my mom said, hey, why don't you buy it? So then I thought, all right. And then you decided to move in.
Yeah, I didn't qualify to be on the mortgage.
You weren't on the mortgage. I would have bought it with or without you.
Let me put it this way, Kyle, to see what a piece of crap I was. Helen buys it, co-sign with her brother just to make the financing. The move-in week, I contract salmonella. So not only am I not contributing financially, emotionally, or anything, on the physical day to move in, I was like shitting my pants. Okay, like lying down, crying at my parents' house because like my roommate's not going to take care of me, and pissing hell off because we didn't know I had salmonella at the time. Like I just looked like a whiny bathroom baby.
I was like, "What's wrong with you?"
And to the point where I think I lost 15 pounds in 4 days. Like I was hospitalized at one point, or taken to the hospital. I forced my way to the hospital with my mom because even they were like, because their Korean parents were like, well, get off the floor. Like, why are you complaining so much? And I'm like, I was in big trouble. And then I walked in and then we started our journey together.
Okay. So because I was such a go-getter, I didn't wait until Dave was getting better. I still went to IKEA. I did all the furniture selection that we first had, and I bought everything, lugged it home myself in my little Beetle, and then got my friends to come over and help me, do some installation. And then you complained.
They did a terrible job.
For like 10 years about what a terrible job. And I'm like, you're so ungrateful.
Yeah, I was such a piece of crap. And for the record, they did do a bad job on the thing. No,
Oh my gosh.
Helen went out. Her friends helped her because they were such a tight group of people, and they're awesome. And you not just bought stuff. You found like deals. Like you found our bed frame for like how much? Like $200 or something crazy like that.
Oh yeah, EQ3
You
is
went
having
out,
a
yeah.
90% off year-end
Like
sale.
9-0. It doesn't make any sense. And we still have that furniture so many years later. And then you think that I would shape up, and then I didn't. And then for the next 3 years or 2, whatever it was, Helen continued to work 2 jobs, paying the mortgage. And I tried to drop out of school 2 times, got a job at a restaurant and drank every night. And made my, girlfriend, I suppose, common law wife, suffer for many years. We got a question from my Instagram poll, from Esther. I'm starting to really like Esther. Esther's a really cool girl. Like, what is it that keeps us stuck together through those times like that?
At those times, we were on the verge. At that time, I remember thinking like I was just too busy to deal with it because I had to keep things going. And, I think I would have given that relationship like another 6 month tops.
I just realized, all of this, I've changed quite a bit since then, but I can't obviously express to you how much I'm grateful that you're in my life. But, I also think about the first week we were dating and how I think it was the second week we had the karaoke night where I passed out drunk in 3 different places on the floor. And then you had to drive me and 2 of your friends home. And I think I was already crying.
Yeah, it was so weird. We would have to stop the car on the side of the highway so you could puke and then apologize after. It's like, what is with this guy? But the one thing I think that's really been the key to us being together for this long, and, we don't really fight and we've never broken up. We're not one of those couples that have kind of been on and off. I think it's because we always talk about it.
We talk about everything. Like we'll stay up all night and talk it out before somebody goes to bed angry. Yeah.
So I think that's been the key.
Yeah, I learned, I dated in high school a little bit and always never works out. And when I met you, I was on the tail end of what I thought was already a bottom. I've had a lot of bottoms. So I thought when I met Helen, I was weighing 135 pounds on the end of my drug binging days. And I thought, I have life figured out. I'm 21 or 22.
Yeah, you thought
I'm
you were so old.
I figured it all out and like I've experienced life. But the one thing that I was right about, I think, right or wrong, but I had an intuition was that, we needed to just talk. Not that it's going to be the same thing or anything, but that we, not just you and I, but I needed to just let more out. And it's been 18 years for me to actually let other stuff out, but it's great. I think that our relationship, both romantically, parentally, entrepreneurially, is because we can't help but talk to each other about everything.
Yep. But I do remember the first time I met you, I went home and I told my mom I had met a guy who's on the verge of homelessness.
Yeah, that's not incorrect. I was actually on the verge of homelessness. I was on the verge of homelessness.
My mom is so cute. She's like, can I make him some food? And I said, oh, don't worry, I'm never going to see him again.
Your mom's the best. Well, let's talk about how we met. That's a story that you love.
Oh, jeez.
Thanks for listening so far. We just wanted to say that this podcast has been brought to you by Media Lab YYC. Kyle Marshall runs this amazing little outfit here in downtown Calgary. And we wanted to say this. Here at Media Lab YYC, we help you share your stories with the public. Video, audio, business, personal. Let us help you take your idea to the finish line. How did we meet? How about I ask you?
All right.
How did we meet?
Well, we met online before online was really a thing.
You know what's crazy? I was thinking about this. That was social media then.
Yeah,
Asian
that was social.
Avenue.
Yeah, that was social media. It was it predates Facebook,
Yeah.
right?
It was pre-MySpace, actually.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's even politically correct these days to have a website called Asian Avenue.
Oh, no, you wouldn't be allowed to do that. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Kyle? Would you be offended if there was an Asian Avenue where
Like, you're not-
predominantly Asian people were supposed to like collaborate and...
No, there's dating sites for people who live on farms.
Yeah.
But it's not a dating site, though.
And there's like, white supremacy and, all that stuff.
Yeah.
There's people that
Well,
are just...
anyway, so I would not
close-minded in
join a
general.
website like that these days.
No.
But back
It
then,
was
that
really
was
popular.
Yeah, it was Friendster. Friendster was the thing, I think. It was Friendster, and then
Oh,
everybody in my high school joined Asian Avenue.
And
so
ICQ was big.
Then, ICQ was before that.
It was older, yeah. But
Yeah.
anyways. Oh, sorry, I'm interrupting.
Okay, well, we met on Asian Avenue, and it was in one of the... So I used to like to stir shit up. I know that's not who I seem like now, except to you.
Whatever. You don't stir shit up.
Well-
we'll talk about that too.
All right. Well, I
Oh my
would go.
God.
Yeah, I would go on these chat rooms with the purpose of stirring shit up.
This is why we were always meant to be together.
So ridiculous.
Because I was so selfish. I had no idea what you were doing in there. But anyways, okay. So then and then what happened?
And then you came into the chat room and you asked about. You made an announcement about hippos, about how hippos are really dangerous and this and that. And then I think I was the only one that was engaging with you.
Yes.
I was like, well, that was interesting.
Well, hippos are dangerous. They have razor sharp teeth. They're responsible for. What's interesting? This is pre-Google. I don't know how I knew that, but that was a very important thing for me to be a dick about at that time. So I did.
Yeah, and then I don't remember. I think you must have found me on ICQ after.
I think we exchanged. I don't know specifically, but I think we had fun sparring. Like you were calling me a weirdo, but we were engaging, having fun, and I think. We must have, maybe it was something you just did at those days. Like, if you like someone, you're like, this is my ICQ number.
I would never do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
then
I was very secretive online. Anyway, so
how
I
did
think
we-
you
I
I
got
think
your
you
ICQ
I think
number.
you found me on ICQ.
Okay.
And then
So I stalked you. That's creepy.
you stalked me. And then which is not unusual. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so then I think we were talking about music and you said I had horrible music taste because I was listening to a lot of Japanese pop at that time. And then you decided to make me a mixtape, but you knew that I would never meet anybody off the internet. So you said, I'm going to hide it under like a mailbox in a public location and you can just go get it. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just quickly meet this guy and get the tape because that seems kind of mean if he's going to put in all this effort. So then we met at Fairview Mall in Toronto. And then you were probably on the end of a drug binge. You looked terrible. And you were just trying to get a ride home. So then you asked to see, you knew I drove, you were like, what kind of car do you drive? And I said, well, I have a Volkswagen Beetle. He's like, oh, I've never seen one of these before. I'm like, okay. He's like, can I come and look at it? I'm like, sure.
Well, also you have to bring up the fact that that's the only thing I kept saying over and over again.
Yeah. You're like, can I please see your car? I'm like, this is such a weirdo.
I lived, just so people know, I lived
Across the street.
Yeah, like a 10-minute walk, maybe 15, because everything's a little bit, bigger in Toronto. Maybe 15 minutes to get to the apartment complex south of there.
And then you were like, I think you said, once we got to the car, you were like, I've never sat in one before. Is it okay if I sit in one? So I think finally I was like,
Smooth.
well, do you just like want to ride home? You're like, yes, please. So after I dropped you off, I remember thinking, yeah, I went home and I told my mom I met a guy on the verge of homelessness. I'm probably never going to see him again. So that's that.
That's the first time I think you've told that story the way I would have. You used to be so embarrassed about it.
Well, because internet is so weird. I don't know. I just didn't want that to define me or define us or define anything.
But it's interesting how much it does, all right? Because that becomes reflective of like the last 18 years
Yeah.
of me just being this like idiot.
It's interesting how when you're 19, you make this one small decision to go to go against your normal like routine instead of saying, yeah, I'll just pick up the tape under a mailbox. You make one exception.
And now you're hooked. You know?
Oh boy.
So this is the trick to dating. You got to be at your worst. I will say this. I mean, my worst is particularly bad. But I do believe, not that I have any right anymore to talk about dating because we've been together for so goddamn long. What the hell do we know about what it's like to date in this current
You got
world?
so upset all the new terms.
I don't understand anything.
Yeah.
Like seeing date. I don't know. Fuck.
Yeah, I was thinking like seeing, checking. You're so upset about that.
Yeah.
But then that's probably old term.
Yeah,
Now. That's not
people don't even-
People don't say that.
No.
Do people still say I'm checking her out? I'm seeing someone?
No, Kyle's like,
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Kyle's like, Jesus, you
I
can
know.
start dating in the 2000s? Like,
I
who
know
says that?
we're old.
I
But
swipe right or left.
see, swiping. Like,
Yeah.
what? I don't understand the
Swiped her.
Well, you know what?
So convenient.
It's either that's either creepy or Dora, which is also creepy. But
But now it's turned, right? The world's changed so much that you can only meet people online, basically.
well, here's the thing: it has changed. Like obviously, the medium through which we communicate has changed. But I think the principle of what I was going to say should stay the same, which is you need to start off showing people who you really are. Like I did it accidentally and without the intention of us dating, of course. Like I didn't know where I was or who I was at that time. I probably still don't. But
Well, you weren't trying to impress me, that's for sure.
right, and I think
You
that
borrowed a quarter from me to call a restaurant to beg for a job. I remember that.
Kyle, we should mic you up. These are great moments, man.
I'm like,
I
yeah,
think-
you can have a quarter.
But I think
This is when telephones only cost a quarter.
yeah, imagine that. I mean, I had a pager. I
And
think
no
at the
one
time.
had cell phones.
Well, yeah. A
Oh,
few
that
drug
was
dealers had
another
a couple,
thing.
yeah.
And if cell phones would have existed, we wouldn't have met because you were trying to cancel, remember?
Yeah, I tried to cancel because
And I wasn't online that morning.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Maybe you know what? Maybe this whole world is changing, and maybe it's too easy to kind of walk away from stuff. Like I'm just thinking of the few single people I've known throughout our tenure, and like the experiences they have, and maybe there's something to that in general. Even with the artists that I meet or the people that are looking for a cop out, the cop out's much easier now. Yeah, like. That morning, you're right. I was on a 3-day bend, so I woke up. Well, I hadn't been sleeping, and I was like, I can't walk. Like I don't know how I'm going to go to Fairview, but I will say I went.
You went.
I didn't just pass out on the floor, so that said something. But I was trying to like message you. I'm like, just log in so we can like reschedule. This is, and then we met, and
Yeah,
then
no one checked their email. You check your
No.
email like
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
totally different environment in 2000, 99,
you would have to
2000.
call the mall security. Please find Helen.
And then they get on the PA. Bloop, bloop, bloop. If there is a Helen Lynn in the Fairview Mall, please report to the information center. There is a call waiting for you. So we met that way. And then my life blew up. I don't remember. I do remember you went to New York. I don't know why that's important. But you kind of disappeared for a bit. And then my life blew up. And then I moved back in with my parents. And then the summer passed. We started talking. Our first movie, X-Men, original X-Men.
Yeah, original
Yeah,
X-Men.
at Empress Walk.
You told me you had no friends,
Yeah, I didn't have any friends.
and I felt
still
sorry
don't.
for you. So I thought, okay, this guy made me a tape. It's reasonably good. I'll just see him one more time.
Reasonably good. That tape's legit. That was like DJ Shadow before, like, Crush, when Crush was still cool. And like, we should find a tape cassette player because we still have the tape and see actually what's on
Yeah,
it.
it's some good trip-hop classics.
Do you, like, man, making a mixtape and like cueing music and like making sure, that was an art. It probably sounds like shit. We'll have to, actually, maybe we should listen to it. I wonder.
We don't have a cassette player.
No, I'm just saying, like in general. I
we
wonder
do have
what
the
actually.
cassette.
Yeah, it's framed now.
I framed it and gave it to Dave on our wedding day.
And I cleaned up by then in the sense that I moved back to home. So I was wearing pants my mom bought me.
Yeah, you took a shower.
I took showers. I don't think I had a job yet, but
I had to buy you like
I
an
owed a lot of people
A&W
money.
meal.
Yeah,
Because
I
you
owed a lot of people money at that
Oh
time.
my gosh. I remember we went out and we went to watch this movie, and then Dave was like, I'm so hungry. So eat something. He's like, I don't have any money. So I bought you an A&W meal at the food court. And I was like, what is this guy?
Baller.
Oh my gosh.
Smooth. That's what I am.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I remember it wasn't Crouching Tiger, but you came over. Oh, I mean, some things happened which I don't remember that real, but I remember you came over to my parents' place when we watched Chow Yun Fat, like a period Chinese drama.
Oh, it was something about the emperor and
The assassin?
Assassin, yeah.
See, I have some memories of
I
stuff.
remember everything.
You know what I've been thinking a lot about too. Through all my psychiatric revelations, I've come to realize that my negative assessment of my childhood and my selective memory of only negative and problematic things is just my disease. And my brother, for example, who experienced most of the same stuff, he's only a year and a half younger than me. He's got a goddamn Rolodex memory, and he remembers both. Like when my family had a negative moment, but he also is like, yeah, remember when we played here? And remember when we did that? I'm like, I don't remember anything other than, this bad stuff. But after we started hanging out, it became the opposite where, I still had lots of bad moments, but I remember things like this. I remember sitting and watching a Chinese movie with you. It was exciting. I think we were sitting on the same couch as like my sister and my mom or something.
Yeah, your parents were there.
Like I'm 22 and I was like a 12-year-old kid with a date over, but
yeah, your parents were in love with me from the beginning.
They assumed, maybe rightfully, I don't know, it's hard to pinpoint, but they assumed that they kind of started getting their son back because of you. We always remember it differently because we weren't actually dating when I moved back home. But if we look at the timeline, I already met you, so maybe your spiritual influence was already like inspiring me to stop being such a dick. But
I'm a pretty positive influence.
Yeah. Actually, I'm.
Would you say I spark joy?
Yeah, obviously. And then on top of all this stupid things that I do, I didn't ask Helen out to be my girlfriend. I told her that I had been telling I told my grandma that we were dating.
I was like, that's so cute. That's pretty cute. We were at the zoo. And you said, I've been telling my grandma that you're my girlfriend. I'm like, how do I answer to that?
Well, you married me, obviously.
Well, you didn't even ask me to marry you.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up, is that I didn't propose to you for our wedding either. I just told you that...
there was an agreement to be married.
Yeah, there was an agreement to be married. And I was a bigger dick than that. Again, too much drinking. We were at was it Alvin's house or Frankie's house maybe on the patio in
it was
the
at
winter?
Angie's house.
Was it Angie's house?
Yeah.
And we were joking around, and then I was like manipulating you to say like, will you marry me, as a phrase. And then she didn't. I ran in.
I didn't say that.
Oh, what did we say?
I think you were trying to ask me when would be a good time to get married or something.
Like we had been going out, like it was after the house, it was probably like 8 years we were together.
And I said, maybe like 10th year anniversary would be a good idea,
and then
because
I
then
burst into the house and I'm like, Helen proposed to me, we're getting married. Like I was just being such a cock.
You're such a dick.
Yeah. And yet we got married on our 10th year anniversary.
What was I thinking?
I don't know. Yeah, what is it? Esther's got a great question.
I think it's because you always make me laugh.
I try.
Yeah, we talk about, everything. Like we never run out of things to talk about. And at the end of the day, you're so silly.
No, we should bring my son in here. I'm clearly the serious one in our family.
But I feel like we're getting too caught up in the past.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to see.
But one thing that, would be kind of a good way to bridge the past and current is that we had talked about starting our own business for many, many years. Out of the 18 years, we talked about it for like 10. Probably 10 of them. And you were always telling me what a good, entrepreneur I would be. And you've been saying that since day one. And then remember we would come up and especially after Emerson, we would say things like, I want to be available to pick up my child from kindergarten, or I don't want to have to ask someone, if I can take a day off, if my kid is sick, and things like that. Like we had all these, we would talk about that all the time. Dreams. And it kind of shaped the business in many ways. Yeah.
We got plenty of time now, and we spent a lot of time with Emerson, and you can see it. He's clearly a 4-year-old whose two best friends are in their, mid-30s. and 40.
Late
And-
30s.
And we're always around. I mean, I don't want that to come off in a comparative or evaluative sense for what everybody else has to do to survive familial life in Canada. But yeah, for us, it became a driving point when we had to reassess our life.
Yeah, it was a huge difference, right? Because we came from both in corporate jobs and you had a more flexible job, but Emerson was dropped off at daycare at 7 a.m.
Yep.
And we would pick him up at 4:30,
Yep.
go home, rush dinner, then it's bath
Awesome.
time, then it's, bedtime, and then he's off to bed. And we would sit there and be like, what happened today? We didn't even see our son.
And we both, I mean, we won't dwell on, but we both come from families that weren't, we weren't like piggybacking each other the whole way or whatever. So we had this idea that we wanted to be like maybe too engaged and kind of like flip it. And it became a source of bitterness that first year too, second year after he was going to daycare, where you went back to work and I was working. Emerson was doing this like, big stint at a nice daycare. He was having a good time there eventually. And we started thinking like, we're seeing him, Saturday and Sunday. When he gets older, and then we start projecting the future. Once he starts doing crafts and like teams and like, how do you see your kid? Is it any? And then we started saying things like, is it any wonder, teenagers hate this and are like that? And, blah, blah. And then we both lost our jobs essentially on the same week.
Yeah. But
that was insane.
With you losing your job, and I had a choice to stay on my job at a more miserable job, and I still walked out of it. And being such a I've always sought security my entire life, and knowing that it was so bad that I could not even do that at the worst time in our life, I knew I made the right decision.
That was big. I remember leading into, I knew I was going to get fired because like I spent 2 years off on psychological problems, which is not, if you're thinking about doing it, I mean, it was interesting. That's apparently not what corporate bosses want out of their employees. They don't want them to not work. But yours was interesting because it devolved really quickly, and we don't have to get into the details of that. But I remember, leading into that, like it was August or September, and you were like, well, I just saw this thing that Marie Kondo's in America now, and she's offering these certification programs.
Yeah,
and you're like, I don't think I can go.
No, we went out for lunch, and I brought it up to you as like, did you know? And you said, so you're going to go?
Yeah.
And
I think the tone was, so you're going to go.
And I was like, no, I was just telling you, it's really expensive.
And I was like, no, like, you got to go. And then you signed up for it, thinking it would be like a part-time job, something just on the weekend, like the courses on the weekend. And then it was like the week after that all that, it was right after all that drama went down.
It was like
crazy.
a month after I signed up, but 2 weeks before I left for the trip.
The way that your work story ended was awful. Yeah. And the only reason I don't want to get into it is because it gets so personal and becomes about individuals as opposed to like, let's say, work culture. And doesn't have to be indicative of working for a company, et cetera. But you dealt with that really well. I was really worried about how you dealt with it. I mean, if you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. But
No, but I think, I do want to credit the fact that we did KonMari first. I think it was after that it became really clear to me that what I was doing is not what I should be doing.
Yeah. What's interesting too after that was that's when we started the no waste stuff. So people who don't know, Helen's old Instagram was Zero Waste YYC.
Yeah, Zero Waste YYC.
And that was pretty big because when you committed to that, we pushed pretty hard. We make everything from scratch, our own ketchup, our own tomato sauce. You were making your own yogurt and make our own bread, like all glass containers. We were refusing to go to stores that served straws and plastic. We went pretty hardcore into it, learning all the background information, kind of like we were vegan for a while and vegetarian for a while. And then
I always have to do things the best, right?
Yeah, we're both like that. We kind of push a little too hard and we don't chill.
Yeah, went a little extreme. We didn't buy a single thing that came in a package.
Kyle knows, like I say, we'll do podcasts all the time. I'm doing like 2-3 a week. And like, we're just like, what the, I can't help myself. But yeah, you pushed hard on that. And that all came after KonMari too, where we were starting to reassess. Yeah, even our data, like we tried cloth diapers for Emerson. We failed because it's disgusting. But there are great options to do that. We just couldn't do it ourselves. We we wanted to like recycle this. And I don't know, we were driving our own condo's compost to grow Calgary in our Mazda, in like plastic containers to try to offer a composting system to our condominium before it became city mandate. Like we went nuts. And so it's fascinating, all of that stuff, like reassessment, looking for priorities, and then being able to act because you're not burdened by
your home.
By your home.
I think it's the little voice that you have in your head just gets really loud that you have to do something about it at that point.
Yeah.
I think that's what zero waste was for me. And, we still try our best we're definitely not as diligent as we were. But, I still do shop at Bulk Barn and try to tell Emerson about the difference between not using, a disposable item versus like a reusable.
Well, our son's the first, 1-year-old who didn't have plastic containers because we read about all the stupid off-gassing things. So he's been using glass and metal, utensils his whole life. We have cloth napkins at home. He's gonna be a weird kid when he gets into elementary
doesn't know what to do with a paper towel.
Yeah, honestly.
He's like, what is this?
He's gonna be like, why are you throwing that out? I'm pretty sure you washed this. And they're like, no, you can't. It's a paper towel. Yeah, so it's fascinating how our lives have evolved since then. And I think there's a lot of creativity in that too. I think approaching being vegan or vegetarian, then you were always into cooking and you're like a chef, but learning about herbs and spices and building kind of all that stuff and building a menu, then no waste, like learning, how to seal things and freeze things and pre-make stuff. And then finding out things like that Bulk Barn does tear weighting and, all that stuff that takes a lot of energy. I love it. I benefit from it. It's great. It's fun living with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You should have dumped him week 1.
Yeah, I think I hope that comes out. But Kyle just announced that I should have been dumped week 1. I think if even more of it, because that's not even really the scratch of the surface. There's so much more.
Oh, there's so much.
Yeah, week 1, week 2, year 1, year 2. Fuck, I don't know. I mean, let's put it this way. Nobody's perfect. So
yeah, I'm no saint, so don't idolize me too much.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm in love with you. I think you're amazing.
Oh my gosh.
I talk about you a lot. I think that Helen doesn't believe how much I dote on her, even though it's fairly obvious. But yeah, you've been essential in all of this stuff that we're doing now and will be in all the stuff that we're going to be doing moving forward. But we got to wrap. We'll see if this podcast is even airable. I enjoy talking with you. What should we talk about as far as a lead out? Is there anything that, I don't know if it'll come out before the Edmonton Home Show, but you're doing Edmonton Home Show. We were speaking there. You spoke at Calgary last year. Yeah, she's Spark Joy with Helen on Instagram. It's pretty good, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned, but I do love you. Next, I think we'll bring Emerson on here and have a nice chat with him. He's got this new thing where he's challenging only me and screaming. He's like he's a teenager already. Mm-hmm. It's pretty crazy. So it'd be fun to get him in the room, hey Kyle? And he can be on the mic and just telling me that he's not going to listen to me, that he doesn't have to look at me, that I...
Now you're just bitter.
Yeah, I had a rough morning this morning.
There's no way he'll sit here for an hour.
Oh, no. Well, we'll see. He's kind of different. Okay, thank you so much for coming over. And yeah, well, I don't know what we're going to do next.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming. And yeah, thanks for listening. And we'll talk with someone else next.
Back and forth.